So there we are, watching the rest of the family aboard Air Force One for the very last time as they head to Mar-a-Lago. We're going to break this down a whole lot more. We're going to watch the plane take off in just a few moments, but let's bring in CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist Antjuan Seawright and CBS News political analyst Leslie Sanchez. They're joining us now to talk about what we've just witnessed and what we can expect to see in the next couple of hours. So Leslie, I don't know if you got a chance to see the speech that the president was prepared to deliver. Very good speech, very nice speech. In it, he talks about some of the things that he's accomplished, and he, of course, mentions the people who have been a part of his administration. We didn't really hear that from the president, but not surprised at all. I mean, we were saying before this that this is the speech, but he most likely will not stick to it.
Not at all, Vlad, but doesn't he get the benefit of both? Everybody's read that speech that needs to read it. Historians will read that speech and compare it to what he actually said. So in many ways, he gets his message out. For many people in this country, they're saying they are breathing a sigh of relief. They were ready for the president to leave. They have wrung their hands enough and really needed to move on. And this is a big step to move on. What's interesting about the president's speech, remember, half this country supported him. Less than half, let's put it that way. And for many, he did talk and finally sound like the president that they'd hoped he could be. Much more conciliatory in tone, much more optimistic in terms of wishing great luck and success. And people can parse out, why did he say luck? The one thing that is true about this address compared with everything else he's done is it's authentic to him. It's something that he speaks and understands the crowd, he understands the moment, he understands theatrics, and he understands optics. And that's what you saw there. It was kind of weaving in, these are the highlight, we talked about the highlight reel, but also a tone of understanding. A page is turning. He hopes it reflects more positively. I think he finally understands the gravitas of what he has, he's reaping what he sowed. And it's a new day. So in a Ronald Reagan tradition, a new day. And I think a lot of people, both Republicans and Democrats, are looking forward to that.
Hey, just real quick before you take over, Antjuan and Anne-Marie and Leslie, specifically, we may be pausing you at times to take in some of the sites that we're seeing on our screens right now. Just so you know that we're not being rude, we're just interrupting you to show you some of the images and some of the sound that is going to be happening, as we know, just over the next hour or so. We just showed live pictures of President-elect Biden and Karen Pence. Oh man. It's going to be different going the next couple of years of Dr. Jill Biden on their way to St. Matthew's, the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle, commonly known as St. Matthew's, with a bipartisan group of members of Congress and other politicians that will be in attendance. And there you're looking at those pictures. So we may pause you, Antjuan, if we can hear the president-elect or Dr. Jill Biden or any of the members of Congress that he has invited with him to St. Matthew's.
So we'll pivot over to you, Antjuan, as you heard that speech, and for that matter, the speech that we heard yesterday too, the one that was recorded. What was your takeaway? I thought it was sort of an odd finish at the end there to play the village people as the president walked off the stage. But what's your take?
Well, it's a friendly reminder, borrowing words from Maya Angelou, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. I'm not surprised at the tone or the rhetoric we kind of heard from the president in his outgoing speech this morning, because it's very similar to what we've kind of heard from him consistently post November 3rd and the election results that came in to make Joe Biden the president of the United States. We can't forget, nor can we ignore what this Trump presidency revealed to many of us further in the United States of America. Alexis de Tocqueville writes one of the most profound things I've ever read in my life when he says America's ability to rehab her faults will determine how great she really is. And I think that Donald Trump's fault lines that he revealed to us, whether it's from a policy perspective or a personnel perspective, and even from a personality perspective, shows that we still have a lot of work to do, and we're still a very young country. And the leaders will decide what that journey towards a more perfect union looks like. And so I'm happy that was his last speech as President of the United States. What I'm more even excited about is the difference in the tone we will hear when Joe Biden is sworn in as the next President of the United States.
So, Leslie, let me ask you, you may have heard our coverage earlier. What is your sense of President Trump's legacy? Oftentimes, going back for many, many years, as you know, Leslie, the question before the American people is, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And I wonder if you talk to, Tony DeCopel did a fascinating piece this morning on CBS This Morning in Philadelphia, where he asked just regular folks what they thought. And uniformly, with the exception of one person, the response was pretty negative. So what is your take on the president's legacy?
What's interesting about that question, Vlad, is that's going to be something that's really analyzed over the lens of time, right? At this moment, it's really hard to say this is a high point. After nearly a year of kind of living through a pandemic, the challenges, the extraordinary death toll, the extraordinary impact on small families, on all families, and businesses around this country. What it did reveal, I like what Antjuan is saying about what it did reveal, is the resilience of our country, the resilience of our democracy, our economy. So in the context of what Trump will look like, for Republicans, there are so many people that will tell you that he has done what no other Republican could do. He won resoundingly in the primaries. They go back to 2015 and 16. And appealing to and reconstituting what the Republican Party looked like. So that transformation is something that is going to live on for the next decade, if not longer. It's a realignment of the party. That's going to be true. He also did things with respect to putting on, he talked about nearly 300 conservative judges, the 3 Supreme Court appointments, the resounding success in deregulation, especially for small business, the building up of the military, and most significantly that we don't talk a lot about is kind of extending this alignment we're seeing of peace in the Middle East that is just in its nascent stages. Those are things that we need to see how this comes out and how that aligns with the Biden administration. And so I don't think we know today. Right now, it looks terrible in terms of the crumbling of the Republican Party as we knew it, and certainly the economy, and certainly how we treat each other. But I think, as we say, a new day is going to disclose kind of it took us to the low point, and we're rebuilding from here.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to ask you. You sort of brought that up with your first point about the realignment of the Republican Party. It seems like he's leaving the Republican Party in shambles. And at least with that last speech, it seems like he might not be leaving at all. And though he sort of enjoyed a tremendous amount of support from Republicans, over the last 2 weeks, I suspect that some of that support has probably diminished. When you look at his approval rating, it's really tanked, and I can presume that a portion of that is because Republicans didn't like what they saw. And he hasn't really sort of backed down from that. I think even Antjuan would say that this democracy, this country, works best when you have 2 strong, healthy parties. Is he leaving this democracy better or not? Because to me, it seems like the Republican Party has a lot of work to do moving forward. I guess I'll ask Leslie, and then I'll ask you, Antjuan.
Okay, I was about to say,
Okay, go. Antjuan's got something to say.
Let me say this. I think what Trump was able to do was expose how fragile our democracy is, and how in one election, every step of progress we made can take us full steam backwards. And I think that's what happened with 4 years of Donald Trump. And whether you agree with him or not, and whether you agree with what I'm about to say or not, I think Donald Trump, in a weird way, was good for the country. Because I think about this from my perspective. I've seen people engaged and involved in politics like I've never seen before. And that happened only because of what Donald Trump revealed in his presidency. I don't know if we would have had as much excitement and enthusiasm among young voters and new voters had the Trump presidency not been the train wreck it was for 4 years. I'm not sure that the motivation for traditional Republicans to say, you know what, this is not about our party, this is not about conservative, this is not about all the elements of the Republican Party, this is about America and preserving this democracy. I don't know we would have experienced that had Donald Trump not become president, had he not behaved the way he did, had Twitter not become the thing it was, and had his policy agenda not played out the way he did. And so in a weird way, I think the country benefited from a Trump presidency. I definitely think it sent a shockwave and a reminder to my party and the leaders within my party that if we do not do our part, and if we do not step up and lead when we need to, we can easily slip back to a place that will put generations of people behind. And so,
Antjuan, let me just pause you for
a weird way.
Antjuan, let me just pause you for just 1 second as we watch Air Force One departing Joint Base Andrews with the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, the very last time that he will fly on that aircraft on his way to Mar-a-Lago. Let's listen. I just wanted to pause for just one moment, Anne-Marie, because this is, normally we would see this after the swearing in of Joe Biden as the 46th president, but this is really the last time we will see the 45th president of the United States on that majestic aircraft, Air Force One, as it wings its way to Florida. You can barely see it now as it makes its way up into the clouds, but this is that moment. This is that solemn moment. The outgoing president of the United States departing, transferring power to the next president of the United States, Joe Biden. In just a few hours, he will be sworn in. And we take you now inside to the church where Joe Biden, who is a practicing Catholic, who keeps a rosary in his pocket wherever he goes, is preparing to take Mass. Let's watch.
Intercede for us with your Father, Lord, have mercy. May Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sin, and bring us to everlasting life. Amen. Let us pray. O God, to whom every human power grant
Do we see Mitch McConnell? All right. I was just wondering out loud to myself, Anne-Marie and Antjuan and Leslie, we know that that the president-elect did invite a bipartisan group of lawmakers, including the leadership of both parties, to join him in Mass, at Mass. And I mentioned it as we were taking you to live pictures of the Mass, that the president-elect carries a rosary that belonged to his son, Beau Biden, in his pocket, and he regularly attends Sunday Mass. He will become, we haven't even mentioned this all that much throughout our coverage of the last couple of weeks, but President-elect Biden will make history in becoming the second Catholic president after John F. Kennedy. And during his presidential victory speech, the president-elect did mention the Catholic hymn On Eagle's Wings. And it's something that we've seen time and time again, his faith practice before the American people, Antjuan and Leslie. He, yesterday, as he was leaving Delaware, you saw tears in his eyes, tears of emotion as he thanked the citizens of that state, which has given him so much, not just the president-elect, but his family, has provided so much comfort to the Bidens over the course of many years. And this is a president, President-elect Antjuan, who understands the language of loss, is the best way that I can put it. He was able to encapsulate all that we have gone through over the last couple of years, but specifically when it relates to the pandemic. The very first thing that he and the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris did yesterday was to go to the Lincoln Memorial to pay tribute and to honor the 400,000 Americans who have lost their lives because of the pandemic. And you saw those 400 lights. It was really a breathtaking scene. Those 400 lights representing each of the lives lost, the 400,000 lives lost, a mother, a father, an uncle, a grandparent, a friend, a colleague, as we lost here at CBS News, who has perished because of this pandemic. And it was just sort of a remarkable scene. And the Vice President-elect said, we've grieved alone for the last year. Now we can begin grieving together. Antjuan.
Well, as it relates to Joe Biden's faith, I was always taught that folks would much rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day of the week. And I think what you see from Joe Biden and what you see this morning from him attending service and so forth is you see the sermon that Joe Biden preaches through the life he lives. That's number one. Number two, yesterday should have sobered everyone up about the reality of this virus and how it hit home, how it's hit every home in this country. And I'm just so thankful that we now have a president that can actually see their reflection in the soil of this country. And when the wind blows, when the winds blow in these United States, they can feel the emotions of so many people who've lost so many things in this country. Keep in mind the experiences of Joe Biden, losing a wife, losing a son, has had to console so many people throughout his life and service, public life of public service here in this country. That's so relatable, and that's why people love Joe, and that's why people know Joe, and most important, I think that's why people feel like they can wrap their arms around the idea of a Joe Biden presidency, even though you may not agree with his politics. And that's why you see a bipartisan group of elected officials join him for worship service this morning, because truth be told, these things and these challenges we face going forward in this country, they should not be viewed as Democratic issues or Republican issues or their issues versus our issues. They're American issues, and we have to get back to that bipartisan spirit of working together to solve some of the crises of our day. And I think Joe Biden can do that.
So as we know, President Trump is not attending the inauguration. We are learning, though, that he did, however, in keeping with tradition, leave a note for President Biden. And so, we'll see in the coming days if we get a peek at what advice or what he may have said to the incoming president. Leslie, I wanted to ask you something. Antjuan was talking about, unity, and it's, you want to see it in action. We know that the theme of the Joe Biden's inauguration address is going to be about American unity, and certainly he kind of showed that today by inviting GOP leaders to have mass with him. It occurred to me that perhaps inadvertently President Trump may have assisted in that unity in his final 2 weeks in office, because the images from 2 weeks ago at the Capitol shook up a lot of people. It prompted Republicans to vote in favor of impeachment when they never did before. I'm wondering, we lost you when you were talking about sort of a shift within the Republican Party. Do you think, in a way, the extreme way in which the President Trump is leaving office may actually pull or may actually diminish the divisions that we see in Washington?
Anne-Marie, no. If anything, it's fascinating because there's such an aura around Trump, right? And Trumpism, and a lot of people just want that to go away. But the reality is there's a lot of people who really connected on the theme that Washington was broken, on the theme that it's a lot of glad-handing, and they just kind of business as usual, and they forget the people that are supporting Washington. And this broke that system up. So Trump is kind of a part that exemplifies the mood of many people. So the distrust, the dissatisfaction of what he was doing, breaking up that system, a lot of people say, then that's an affront to me personally as well, because I don't think Washington works for me. So this definition of unity has to cross all these things. I think this moment of faith, this moment of ecumenical faith, of bringing everyone together, and being Catholic, I really, see that as an important moment historically and in my life. But there's going to be many pieces that have to come together that will bring Republicans back into the fold to what the party could be in the future, and also to reconcile even within the party what Trump's legacy is, that he wasn't unifying, that he was so petty on things where he could have been so bold. There's a lot of healing that needs to happen, but the thing I think we're looking forward to is the optimism that needs to happen. And it's not just the dark days ahead, it's the bright days ahead. And that's what Republicans are going to be listening for today.
Anne-Marie, I think there will be some who will make an attempt to sanitize history about the Trump presidency and some of the things that have happened. And there will be others who will quickly move on to say what's next for the Republican Party. And then there will be some on my side who would argue that everything is going to be fine and great now that Trump is gone. But let me just slow everyone down and press the pause button for a second. Racism did not end in this country when Barack Obama was elected to the presidency. And the Trump line of thinking and perhaps the behavior that resulted as a result of Donald Trump will not go away just because he's no longer in office. And I think we all have to be honest with ourselves about that. If not anything, I think it probably gave fuel to some of that thinking and thought to live a little bit longer as the Republican Party tries to recalibrate and figure out who they want to be when they grow up in a life post-Donald Trump.
Well, we will continue to do what we have done over the course of this administration and into the next administration, which is to hold the next president of the United States and the vice president and his administration to account. I know that there are a lot of people who support President Trump who don't believe that, but that is what we as a news organization have done for some 90 years, and we will continue to do that, and we'll do it with the help of you, Antjuan Seawright and Leslie Sanchez. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be speaking to you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.